In this video, we are going to do a review of the offline features of Pure Hold'em World Poker Championship. Basically, this game only has one offline feature, which consists of different games against random AI opponents offline. And, you know, the different games depend on how many credits you have for the buy-in. When I do this review, I look at it in terms of how it stacks up to other games I played or its competition. I've played, a few games, and we'll show some of these games here. And I've also played some other games like Stacked that I'm not going to show. But we want to look at how this game compares to the competition. So let's first take a look at some of the positives of this game. This game has good graphics. It plays and feels like a real game would, where you have players sitting at a table. They don't leave. They just keep playing, and you can keep playing, as long as you want. And also, if you mess around with the sound, it kind of feels like a real game in terms of you hear the sound in the background. Sometimes actually. You might be better off getting rid of the slot machines you hear in the background. I don't like hearing slot machines, obviously. It plays and feels like a real game, and as you can see on here, graphics are pretty good. I would say they're top of the line compared to other games I've played in competition. One of the nice features about this game is, let's say a player loses their entire stack, like she did right there. That player will come in and rebuy and actually, make the game grow, kind of like, a real game would. So as you can see, she's sitting out here. The next hand, she will come back and play. And, okay, here comes that player back. She rebought for 100, I believe. Yeah, she rebought for 100. So that's one of the nicer features of the game, is it keeps playing as you go. As time goes on, and you can build up some decent stack sizes as you play. So, in addition to those first two positives we mentioned, it also takes up low memory, or approximately 1.1 gigabytes if we zoom in there, which is good if you have a lot of other games in your PS4 and you don't want to have to delete something to play this. This game actually does take up 1.1 gigs. Now let's take a look at some of the negatives of this game. The first main negative is there's no data. I mean, like no stats and stuff. If you press the options menu and you look, you can't find statistical data, anywhere in this game. The only stats it basically keeps track of are pot size and how many chips you have in front of you. And if you look in front of us on this screen, you can see the second issue I have is they overuse the $2 bet. And I don't have an example here, but sometimes you could bet like 40 and they'll raise you to 42. I'm not sure why they put that in there, being no limit hold'em. It doesn't make a lot of sense. As you can see right here is a pot of 40 we have, and both players bet 2. I'm going to call because I really don't care. It's only 2. And it's just a game, obviously. Here we have check, and I'm just going to check behind. But yeah, they're betting $2 with those hands, and that line gets annoying. There's also some other lines that I might not be able to show you on the screen. They take that are highly exploitable. When I say they're highly exploitable, I mean, yeah, there's like a bunch of calling stations here. Oops, don't want to call there. Yeah, there's a bunch of calling stations that'll call you down with like middle pair, height cards. You could have like ace king, ace queen. You could bet close to pot on like 2 or 3 streets, and they'll call you down with like king jack, and there'll be like an ace on the board. Another line that's exploitable, if you look right here, they like to go all in with aces, kings, sometimes some smaller hands like that, which is, okay, that happens in a real game too, but it's so exploitable to the fact, well, if I know they're going to move in with aces, kings, or post-flop they'll move in with a set top 2 pair, I can, do a lot of value betting per se and exploit that post flop. As you can see in this game, I think I started with 100 and I'm up to 953. I don't know how long I played or how many hands I played because I can't get data on that, as I mentioned earlier. So those are some of the issues they have with that, is they don't have enough variation in how opponents play. Now, I mean, when you play real cards, there's a lot of stuff that can be exploited, whether you're doing it or your opponents are doing it. You got to pay attention to that. But it seems like, and this is probably an issue other games have as well, but it seems like relative to their competition, I think it's, or at least from my experience, it's a little bit bigger issue compared to some of the competition, where they actually have opponents that will take a little bit better lines in some situations. To summarize the negatives, I would say no data, $2 bet overused, lines are very, very exploitable. You can't change the speed of the game, so you can't speed things up or change, the view of the table. And I've got low memory here, and that was just a positive, right? Well, I'll explain why I got it as a negative in my next segment. Basically, what could be improved? The first thing I would try to improve if I was a developer is the artificial intelligence. And they can use data from the online version of this game to try to pick up on tendencies, such as getting rid of that $2 bet. And the AI act more like you'd expect a live opponent to do. And we'll look at that in more detail as we move down the list. The next item that they could add would be the rake. Give a player the option of adding a rake in the game, which would make it kind of play a little bit more realistic, where the stacks can't keep building up after somebody gets felted, because, there's money going through that rake tube. Another suggestion I have is that players could leave after X is accomplished. What do I mean by that? Well, a number of things. Let's say they lost so much money or so many buy-ins, they just automatically leave the table and they get replaced by somebody else. Stack sizes. Well, let's say a player starts with 100 and they get up to 400 or 500. Maybe they just want to quit. Maybe another player just gets up to 200 and they quit. That would make it seem more realistic. Or a player could leave after a certain amount of time if they didn't, get items 1 and 2. Another option they could add is, let's say there is a player that everybody else wants to play with in the game. Some players might, not leave after a certain amount of money. They'll stay until that specific player leaves, because that player is, good for the game, so to speak. They could also add statistics, such as player statistics. I mentioned earlier, opponent statistics. Look at individual hands, like, say, ace-king, ace-queen, 6-5 suited, and, see how they're doing on a profitability standpoint. Obviously, you can't put data on everything, but, knowing opponents' tendencies and stuff instead of just kind of watching and observing would be kind of cool. So you get data a little faster on that. The last thing I would suggest improving on the game is table view options. In terms of, the view I have there is pretty good, what I set up. But, maybe give us some options as to how we could view the table, not just being stuck in that one viewing perspective, which it's pretty good. But, we'd like to have, more options there. And, the only other thing I would add is try to speed up the game, or give us an option to speed up the game in terms of how fast, so we don't have to wait forever for hands to go through and so forth. And that pretty much wraps up my review of this game. Thank you for watching.